All right, so let's jump into this deep dive on Fintech app UX. You sent over a guide that really caught my eye.
Mm-hmm.
It focuses on these common design issues in financial apps, and more importantly, how to actually fix them.
Yeah.
The whole idea that like small changes can make a huge impact is really interesting.
Yeah, and it's fascinating how this guide connects that to the Pareto principle.
Okay.
That whole 80-20 rule we hear about all the time.
Right.
Well, applying that to UX design, that's where it gets really interesting.
So we're thinking that like 80% of user satisfaction comes down to just 20% of an app's features?
Exactly. And this guide makes the case that if fintech companies can really nail those make-or-break interactions, those crucial 20% that users rely on most, they're going to see a huge jump in overall satisfaction.
Okay, so it's about really prioritizing those high-impact fixes. Got it. So where do we even begin?
Well, this guide kind of breaks down the user experience into a few key areas that are like really ripe for improvement.
Yeah.
How we access and navigate these apps, the ease of actually making transactions.
The level of control and insight users have over their own information, and then finally some really specific features that tend to be those major friction points.
That makes sense. Let's start with that first hurdle, actually getting into the app and finding your way around. I have a feeling we've all got some opinions on this one.
Oh, absolutely. The guide calls out clunky logins and confusing navigation as momentum killers for a reason.
Yeah.
Like, they use this example of just bombarding users with a ton of options before they even log in.
Oh, yeah.
It's overwhelming.
It's too much.
And it just leads to people giving up.
Yeah, I've totally been there. It's like you're hit with this fire hose of financial data before you've even had your coffee.
Right.
Not the way to start the day.
Not at all. The takeaway here is to prioritize that core user journey.
Yeah.
So on the login screen, that primary action should be crystal clear.
Okay.
Clear calls to action, intuitive menu placement, make it as frictionless as possible for users to get where they need to go. So streamline that initial interaction, get you into the good stuff, the heart of the app. So once you're actually in, I'm curious what the guide says about actually accessing your key info, like your account balance.
So this is where it gets interesting. This guide points out that burying that critical information behind multiple clicks just creates unnecessary anxiety.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have to go on a scavenger hunt just to see how much money is in your account.
Ugh, the worst. And then you end up refreshing it like 100 times after a weekend of, questionable spending decisions.
Right. But the solution is actually really simple. Make that key financial data immediately visible. Imagine a dashboard that puts your balance front and center. Maybe even uses visuals like graphs or charts to make it super easy to digest.
Yes, like a quick financial health check the moment you open the app.
Exactly.
No more hide and seek with your own money.
Exactly. And speaking of dashboards, the guide also goes into this problem of information overload.
Oh, sure.
Cramming every possible feature and data point onto a single screen. That's not helpful.
Right.
It's actually counterproductive.
Yeah, it's like trying to find a specific spice in a completely disorganized spice drawer.
Yeah.
It's in there somewhere.
Yes.
But who has the time?
That's a great analogy. And the guide actually uses that exact one,
Oh, wow.
emphasizing this need for prioritizing and categorizing information really effectively. Highlight the essential data, use visuals to break things up, and maybe even offer some contextual insights like personalized spending suggestions based on your transaction history.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so something tailored to you.
Okay, so we've logged in, we see our balance, now let's actually move some of that money around. Making transactions, that should be the easy part, right?
Do you think so, right?
Yeah.
But this is something this guide actually spends a lot of time on.
Okay.
Because a lot of apps make it way more complicated than it needs to be.
Yeah.
One example that really stood out to me was they talk about these apps that just hit users with this massive list of transfer options.
Mm-hmm. No real categories, no guidance, just overwhelming.
Oh, I've been there. It's like trying to order a pizza and they hand you a phone book. I just want to give them my order.
That's such a good way to put it.
Yeah.
And the guide really stresses how important it is to streamline that whole transaction process. Anticipate user needs, Like, imagine your app could just figure out what kind of transfer you're making based on the account number you enter.
Right.
So there's less typing for the user, less room for error.
Oh my gosh. Less room for me to completely overthink the whole thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But what about that moment when you finally hit send and you're just like, where'd it go through?
Oh, yeah.
Waiting for that payment confirmation.
The payment confirmation limbo, yeah.
The worst.
The guide talks about that too. Those vague alerts that don't give you any real information, that's just not good enough. Users need that clear reassurance. Yes, your money is on the move, or no, something went wrong, and give them the right information based on that outcome.
Yeah, it's your money. You need that peace of mind. How do they suggest apps handle that better?
Contextual feedback at every step of the way. So think like a payment confirmation that actually summarizes the transaction details.
Okay.
Maybe even gives you some logical next steps, like view your dashboard or make another payment.
It's like that little swoosh sound you get when you send an email.
Yes.
Just a little digital pad on the back that says, it's all good. So we've talked about the good. Let's talk about when things go wrong. Customer support.
Oh, boy.
Don't even get me started. I once spent like 45 minutes on hold just to be told I had to submit my question online anyway.
Oh, no. And this is a really common complaint, hidden contact info, insane wait times, limited support channels. And the guide really calls this out. Because in today's world of instant communication,
Right, you expect better.
it's just not acceptable,
Yeah.
especially when we're talking about finances, Things are stressful enough as it is.
Exactly. You don't want to feel like you're totally on your own when something goes wrong.
Exactly. So the guide really stresses how important it is for these companies to have accessible, transparent, easy-to-use support channels.
Okay.
Make it easy to find contact info, be upfront about wait times, maybe even add a little personal touch, to show you're talking to a human.
It's about having that safety net.
Okay.
I want to get into some more of the nitty-gritty features now. Things like, what does this guide say about accessing my credit card details, managing recurring payments, that kind of stuff?
Okay, yeah, let's get into the details.
Yeah.
Let's start with the credit card details. Seems so simple, right?
Right, but it's not always.
But so many apps make it so complicated.
I can't tell you how many times I've been online shopping, about to check out,
Yeah.
and I realize I need my actual physical card to finish the purchase.
Yeah. And the guide talks about that exact scenario. You should be able to just securely view that information right in the app.
It just makes sense. And copy and paste it securely so I can actually finish what I'm doing.
Exactly. Streamline the process, but also keep that security top of mind.
I love it. Okay, let's talk about transaction histories.
Okay.
In theory, super helpful.
Right.
In reality,
Right.
not so much.
The guide says it can be like a black hole of information.
Yeah. It's almost impossible to actually make sense of it all, to see where your money's actually going.
Yeah, it's like an endless, uncategorized list, no way to search, no way to filter, not helpful.
It's like trying to understand your spending habits by staring at a Jackson Pollock painting.
That's a good one. The guide actually uses this analogy of a shoebox full of receipts.
Yes.
Just all jumbled up.
Right.
But the solution is really pretty simple, clear, searchable transaction histories organized in a way that makes sense.
So instead of just seeing every single purchase, you can actually see the big picture.
Exactly. The guide even suggests separating your incoming and outgoing transactions visually.
Oh, that's smart.
Maybe use color coding, things like that, to make it really easy to understand.
Okay, so you can actually see where your money is going. I like it. Now let's get to those recurring payments. In theory, my favorite thing ever.
Right.
In practice, the bane of my existence.
Oh, tell me about it.
Because setting them up is the worst.
The worst, the guide actually gives this example of these ridiculously complicated forms, unclear instructions, making you jump through hoops for something that's supposed to make your life easier.
It's like when you finally decide to get that gym membership, you're feeling good about yourself.
Yeah.
And then you realize you need 3 forms of ID and a blood test just to sign up.
So true. It shouldn't be that hard. And the guide really emphasizes that streamline the process.
Right.
Make it intuitive and actually use the information the app already has about you.
Right.
No more starting from scratch every single time. Think pre-filled forms, simple instructions, make it easy.
Effortless enrollment in recurring payments.
Exactly.
That's what I'm talking about. Speaking of things that should be effortless terms and conditions,
Oh,
nobody's reading those.
those walls of tiny legalistic text.
The worst. It's like they're trying to make it impossible to understand what you're actually agreeing to.
Right. And the guide actually talks about this. They say it's crazy how many companies just present their terms and conditions as these dense, unreadable blocks of text, often hidden away in PDFs.
It feels counterproductive. Like, don't you want people to trust you?
Exactly. So the guide suggests a more user-friendly approach. Just put it right there in the app.
Okay.
Use clear summaries, headings, bullet points, plain language.
So more like the key points
Exactly.
instead of a whole legal document.
Right. Make it something people will actually read.
Yeah, I might actually read those for once if they were like that. Okay, so moving on from that legal jargon, let's talk about something that seems like it should be really simple but can actually make or break the whole app experience:
Okay.
button placement.
Oh, yeah. It's one of those things you don't really think about until it's bad.
Right.
Yeah. And this guide actually gives this example of someone accidentally deleting a payment they were trying to make
Oh, no.
because the delete button was like way more prominent than the confirm button.
It's like the digital equivalent of leaving your phone in a bowl of water, just a recipe for disaster.
Totally. And they really emphasize that visual hierarchy, making those important buttons clear,
Okay.
putting them in a logical place in the design.
Right.
So you're not accidentally clicking the wrong thing.
Okay, so more like a gentle guiding hand
Yeah.
than a game of digital minesweeper.
Gotcha. Now, what about when you're cruising along on the app
Yeah.
and you hit a wall where it's like, oh, you can't do that here. You have to go on your laptop.
Ugh, the worst. The worst. Yeah, they talk about that too. Like, you should be able to do everything on any device.
Seamless experience, right?
Exactly.
It shouldn't matter if I'm on my phone or my computer.
It shouldn't.
I should be able to do what I need to do. Speaking of things we should be able to do, let's talk about saving money. It's like, we should all be doing it.
But even with all these great tools, it can be really hard to actually make it a habit.
Oh, it's so true. And they actually talk about that in the guide.
Okay.
You would think fintech apps would make it easier to save.
Right. That's the whole point.
Exactly.
Right.
But they often make it way more complicated than it needs to be.
It's true. It's like having a gym membership, but then never actually going to the gym.
That is a perfect analogy. And they talk about how important it is to make it like almost fun, you know?
Okay.
Gamify it, make it rewarding, track your progress visually, maybe even automate it a little.
I like that. Celebrate the small wins.
Exactly.
Okay. So you're actually motivated to keep going. What about when you want to explore other products the app offers? I feel like that can be a black hole too.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And that's another thing the guide really digs into.
Okay.
They found that a lot of these apps just make it way too hard to like learn about and sign up for new products.
Right. So it should be clear. It should be easy to understand, easy to use.
Exactly. And it shouldn't force you to leave the app and go somewhere else.
But like trying to order dessert at a restaurant and they make you go to a whole different bakery just to see the menu.
Right. Why make it so complicated? So the guide really emphasizes how important transparency is.
Okay.
Give people the information they need up front, make it really obvious how to apply.
So you're not scaring people away with a million steps.
Exactly. Make
Huh.
it seamless. It should be a good experience from start to finish.
It's not just about, making the app look pretty. It's about building that trust with the user.
Exactly. And making it an experience that people actually want to use.
Right. So at the end of the day, these small changes, they can have a huge impact on how we experience and manage our money.
Oh, absolutely.
It's about making it easier, more enjoyable, less stressful,
100%.
and ultimately putting the power back in the hands of the user.
Exactly.
Well, on that note, that is our deep dive into fintech app UX. As always, thanks for coming on and sharing your expertise.
This was fun.
Until next time, everyone keep exploring, and we'll see you on the next deep dive.